What is up, my friends, and welcome back to Hobble Creates. My name is Hobble, and in the last episode we automated andesite alloys. And we've done that because today we can take those andesite alloys and we can automate the heck out of making precision mechanisms from scratch. So if you are new here, then be sure to hit that subscribe button and remember to leave a like. And of course, as always, there are chapters down below so you can skip forward, you can skip back, whatever your heart desires. Oh, and if you do want to learn how to automate andesite alloys and you haven't seen the episode already, then be sure to check that one out. So why don't we now head up to Example Hill, and I'm going to show you a sample of what we're going to be building today. However, since building this, I have learned that there's some much more efficient ways that I can actually do this, so take this with a pinch of salt. This isn't going to be the exact version that we're going to be making today. So for our precision mechanisms, we need to automate the creation of cogwheels, large cogwheels, and iron nuggets. A small cogwheel is just going to require one shaft and one plank, and a large one requires one shaft and two planks. So right here, this is where we're going to be pumping in our andesite alloys from our factory that we've made, and we're going to have it coming in over here. And of course, now we know we've got an efficient recipe, we're actually going to be using our mechanical saw. Now the problem with the mechanical saw is that it is very reliant on which direction that our shaft is spinning. And a very easy way to check is very quickly adding a little bit of power, and as you can see, we are actually going from the right to the left. So that means that that item is now going to output onto this belt, and it's just going to clog things up. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our encased chain drive, break it away, and we're going to change that over to regular gearboxes. That's going to invert the direction. As you can see, we are spinning across and we are getting ourselves shafts. But from our mechanical saw now, we're going to need to pick up those shafts and we're going to need to send them into some storage. And I think the easiest way to do that is to just make ourselves a nice item vault. That way we've got a big stockpile of shafts waiting for us. Just in case any additional crafts then are going to require shafts, we can just steal them from in here. Then all we need to do is crouch and we're going to pop down a brass funnel on here. Now we're going to use brass mostly because we're making 6 shafts at a time and an andesite funnel would only ever pick up 1 at a time. So now that we've got shafts in storage, we actually need to combine those with some planks in order to make our cogwheels that we're going to need. So next up, we need to have a line coming in. This is going to be where we're going to input all of our logs. And we're going to give ourselves a little bit of space. We can always compact this later if we wanted to, but we're going to very cheekily sneak in a belt here. So now that we've got our logs coming in, we need to pop down our mechanical saws. The first one is going to strip the log, and then the second one is going to turn it into planks. So let's grab ourselves our first attribute filter, and we're going to drag in any stripped log. Then we're going to scroll down until we find vanilla stripped logs. We're going to click add to attribute list, and we're going to click tick. And that's going to go into our first recipe slot. Now in our second one, we need to grab in any of our planks. We're going to scroll down to tagged Minecraft planks. We're going to click add. And we're going to click the tick. But now that we've got our planks, we're going to do the same again. We're going to send those into a nice and big item vault. We're going to hold down crouch and we're going to pop on our brass funnel. Again, we're going to go for brass because we're producing 6 planks. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to connect some rotational power so everything starts moving. Then on the back of our saws, we're going to pop down 2 encased chain drives. That ensures that these 2 are spinning in the same direction as each other. Then we're going to take some shaft, we're going to pop it out of the back here, and we're connecting it to our original mechanical saw. So now that we've got our planks and our shaft automated, the next thing we're going to do is dealing with our output of our basins, because we're going to be sending everything to a basin and we need to know where the output's going to be. That's going to determine how tall we actually need to build the next section. So from our vault with our planks in, we're going to come out 1, 2 and 3 blocks, and we're going to just put down a little baby belt. This is going to be our output of all of our cogs. On this belt now, we're going to pop down 1 and 2 smart chutes, and then on top of those chutes, that's where we're going to have our basins. Then from this smart chute here, we're going to pop down 1 of our shafts and another one here. That's going to give us a vertical belt. Then at the top of this, we're just going to pop on a funnel. And we're going to repeat the same on the other side. And let's grab ourselves another funnel and pop that on. Now this is where things change a little bit. We do need to use some brass funnels here. We need to say that we only want 1 item going out of this one. And we're going to scroll wheel up and we're going to send 2 out of this one because the large cog wheel requires 2 planks and the small one only requires 1. And before we forget, we're actually going to set those filters now. So the one on the right is going to be making our small cogwheels. So up here, we're going to select the recipe as small cogwheels, and we're going to say only pull out the small cogwheels. And then on the left one, we're going to pop down a large one and a large one. Now, since I'm pretty sure these are the final positions, let's go and pop on our mechanical mixers. So now we need to actually route in our shafts to our basins, and I've come out 3 blocks from our final smart chute with our belt. This is where we're going to have our items end up. So we're going to pop down yet another vault, I'm going to try and make it correctly, that's right. And this is where we're going to have all of our cogwheels congregate. So let's pop on a funnel, and from there, we need to route in some of our shafts. So let's pop down a shaft here, make sure it is in the correct orientation. And we're going to make that a vertical belt. We're going to come up an extra block. Then from here, we're going to have a belt that goes over to our first basin. However, I'm going to bring the belt back a little bit because we're going to pop down a depot here. This is where we're going to have all of our shafts just congregate. Now let's pop down a temporary block anywhere over here. Then we're going to take a mechanical arm. We're going to right click on our depot with it. Then we need to double right click on our basin here. Double right click here. And let's pop that fella down there. That's going to take the shafts and deposit them equally. Now, before we go any further, I think it's probably quite important that we plug this in and just make sure everything is working as intended. So over on our double mechanical saws now, we're going to add in a shaft, then we're going to add in a gearbox to this belt system here, a gearbox on the end here, and I think if we plug in a shaft, we should actually start spinning in the correct direction, so we should be getting some planks. Yes, we are. Now, handily, this is actually spinning in the correct direction for our belt here. But now we're going to deal with our shafts. So down at the bottom of our shaft line, we need to pop on a brass funnel. And I'm looking around to see where we've got power we can steal. And I'm thinking maybe if we steal a little power from this one here for our oak planks. And maybe if we pop down 2 of our regular gearboxes, absolutely, we're going to spin in the correct direction. Now the trickiest bit is adding power to this belt here. Because as you see, if we add in a gearbox here, that is unfortunately spinning in the wrong direction. So we're going to need to power this belt independently. So thankfully, we do have a bit of rotational power to play with down here. So let's add in a gearbox, another gearbox, vertical of course, and then pop a shaft in the middle. And yes, we are spinning in the correct direction. That is what we like to see. Now, if you've watched my previous episodes about powering mixers, is no pretty way to do it, so we're just going to jank something together. We're going to pop in a shaft down here, a vertical gearbox on the end of it. We're going to take our shaft, and we're going to pop in our first cogwheel. That's going to power our mechanical arm. Then we're going to come up with a shaft, and we're going to pop down another small cogwheel. And what we should see is we are getting large and small cogwheels into this item vault. So now all we need to do is take our large cogwheel, our small cogwheel, send that into some deployers with some iron nuggets, and we are done, my friends. And this is shaping up to be quite a nice build, so you may as well subscribe. You know you're enjoying yourself if you're still watching at this point. But anyway, let's work on that next. So we've got our cogwheels over here. That's going to dictate that we're probably going to have them coming out over this way. So in order to do that, I'm actually going to extend this item vault out an extra 9 blocks. So from our item vault now, we're going to come out 1 block, 2 block, and place down a shaft, and we're going to have this one going a little bit sideways. This is going to be where we're going to have our deployer line. Then on this first belt here, we're going to pop down a deployer. On the second one, we're going to pop down a deployer. Then what we're going to do is we're going to extend this belt one more time, and on the left hand side, this is going to be where we're going to have our iron nuggets going in, because it does need to deploy in a certain order. We need small in this one, large in this one, and iron nuggets in this one. And we can sneak those in down the side here. Now from our item vault, we're going to pop down 2 shafts here, a temporary shaft, and this is going to allow us to make a vertical belt. We're going to go 1, 2, and 3, and 4. Let's grab our brass funnels. We're going to pop one on here, one on here. Then on the first funnel, we're going to pop in a small cogwheel. On the second funnel, we're going to pop in a large cogwheel. So only those items can get pulled out of this vault, and they're going to go into their respective deployers. Once we just pop on some regular andesite funnels. Then while we're at it, why don't we go ahead and build a third belt here. This is going to be where we're going to be running in our iron nuggets, so we can take this all the way down. Looks like we've got a connection here that we can use. It's running in the correct direction. And there we go. We've now got iron nuggets coming into our system. However, we do need to pop in our andesite funnel, and then we also need to carry on the rotation. But here we go. We've got iron nuggets in one, large in the other, and cogs. So I hope you enjoyed the easy part of today's build, because now we need to move on to the tougher bits, which is going to be filtering out all of the precision mechanisms. We're going to need to cycle back the incomplete ones to this belt so they can get stamped again, and then once they are a complete version, we need to detect that they are actually finished and they were a success, and we need to send them off to our main storage belt. And we also need to detect then if it's junk, and we need to send them into a separate chest for us to just deal with later. So starting this section off, we're going to add in our item vault. This is where everything's going to end up, whether it's a nugget, it's going to be a sheet, it's going to be anything. Everything is going to end up in this item vault. Then from this item belt on the side, we're going to pop down a shaft here and here. This is what's going to cycle everything back. Next up, we're going to take ourselves a brass funnel, and it does need to be brass because we're going to make a very specific attribute filter. What you need to do is you need to get yourself one incomplete precision mechanism. So you can get this in many ways. You could just power the system on now and send through one gold sheet, and that would give you an incomplete version. We're going to use that as our reference, and we're going to select the cannot stack, because everything in this system so far can stack except for these. You cannot stack these on top of each other. That's how we're going to be pulling out only our precision mechanisms to cycle through again. Now on the end here, we're going to pop down an item vault. That's going to bring everything back into the system, and it's also then on this side, we're going to have it output everything onto the belt, so we can go around again. Now we need to add another belt. We're going to have one over here on the front of our item vault. This is going to come down here, and this is where we're going to be storing all of our junk. So on here, we're going to add another brass belt. It does need to be brass because we need to make a filter that has got all of these items in here. You'll need to add a gold sheet, an andesite alloy, a cog wheel, a shaft, a crushed gold ore, a gold nugget, an iron ingot, and a clock. These are all of the junk items that you can get from failing a craft, and we're going to set that filter here. And now this belt needs to spin that way. We're going to add a belt that's going to spin back to the beginning now, where we're going to be storing all of our precision mechanisms. So let's go ahead and add a belt in here. This is an arbitrary length. This is essentially just going to go back into your main bulk storage. We're just going to throw it down here for now. So let's add in one more brass funnel now, and we're going to filter this to be precision mechanisms only. So I've popped an item vault on the end of our precision mechanisms. We're going to pop an item vault, and we're actually going to go for a big boy item vault here, and that's going to store all of our junk to be processed or destroyed later. And then the final thing that we're going to do is over where we've got our deployers on this belt line here, we're going to extend this out a couple of blocks, and we're going to pop down a mechanical press. What this allows us to do is, instead of having to press all of our sheets to begin with, we can just throw in the gold ingots, and it's going to make it for us. And now it's time for the hardest part, which is going to be powering everything on and making sure everything is spinning in the correct direction. Because a lot of this is very directional. It's a lot of belts that need to be spinning in the right direction. And to make it easy on ourselves, coming to our deployers, we're going to make sure that they are facing right the way through. So once we power one of these things, they are all powered. Then we can steal some shaft power through here, and we can power our mechanical press as well. So let's connect those together now. And we're going to be powering it through our mechanical press. So from this belt behind, we're going to power the belt that's got our deployers on. Then we're going to come to the side with a vertical gearbox. That's going to bring the power to a upwards direction. We're going to add in a shaft. We're going to add in another vertical gearbox. And finally, a regular gearbox. And just to keep things simple, we're going to extend this belt out a little bit more and pop in a shaft there. That way it's very easy for us to deposit all of our gold ingots. Now the best thing about using a gearbox right here, it's inverted our belt direction, so we can just take an encased chain drive, and we can just join all of these together. This belt is now spinning in the correct direction. And now we've got this belt spinning, we can just add a shaft into this belt behind, pop down a gearbox, this has now got rotation. And now that we've got this belt spinning, 2 gearboxes, that will then spin in the opposite direction, and I believe that should be everything powered. So why don't we actually test this out now? I am going to throw in one of our golden ingots. That should get pressed, get stamped 3 times. And yes, I absolutely did forget to put a tunnel on the end here. So let's pop down a funnel. That can then go through, go round again. And again, that's 3 cycles. That's 4 cycles, and if we head around to the back, we should see 1 or 2 ways. We've got ourselves a precision mechanism. So all that's left to do now is a little bit of stockpile control, and we are done, my friends. So over where we're powering, we're going to throw down a clutch. This is where we've got our rotational power coming in, obviously from your windmills or your water wheels. And on this clutch, we just need to pop down a redstone link. We're going to right click it to make it into receiving mode. We're going to put item vault as our first filter, the mechanisms as the second filter, and over on our vault with our precision mechanisms in, we just need to pop down a stockpile switch. Now, I'm assuming, yeah, we're not going to want to store the full amount, so we're going to actually scroll this way down. When we get to 2%, we want to turn back on, but over here, we're going to store maybe 25% of our capacity. That's going to be an absolute ton of these mechanisms, and it's going to be very unlikely that we're going to need that many in our life. But again, let's pop down a redstone link. We're going to make sure that this is in sending mode. Mechanism is filter 2. And then the item vault goes in frequency 1. This should now be done. Now, if you want to increase the capacity of this machine and you want to be able to pump in as many iron ingots as you want, then there's one more change that you guys will need to make. So this item vault back here, this is our limiting factor. The size of this vault depends on how many items we can have going around in a cycle. And the very easy fix for this is to just make this item vault a lot bigger. So we're going to bring this up 3, and then we could always bring this back as far as we want. If we want to pump in hundreds of thousands of items, you're really free to do so. But there you go, my friends. You now know how to automate precision mechanisms from scratch with very little effort. These will now continue to make precision mechanisms forever. So if you did enjoy yourself, then be sure to hit that subscribe button, as you are not going to want to miss the next episode, where I think we're going to scale it back ever so slightly, and we're going to automate some lava. So I want to thank you so much for watching, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye, guys.